Check.
Like the eighth grade for 2 quarters and beat them with the bar subs. And that's encouraging.
Mr. Mayor, 6 o'clock, and we're ready to proceed at your convenience.
We'll do it live. Thank you, and we will call to order the Riverside City Council meeting for Thursday, October 17th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Denning.
Here.
Ms. Fry.
Here.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Ms. Lomatch.
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield.
Present.
Mayor Williams.
Here. No absent members. Mr. Manager, any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
Just one minor correction, Mr. Mayor. Item 12A1 is a typo. This will be the second reading of ordinance 855.
That's more than a minor
Move to
correction.
approve corrected agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, a motion for Ms. Lomatch and a second for Mr. Joseph to amend the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Agenda is approved.
Motion,
Oh, we got to,
sorry.
if you're able to, please join us and rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And at this time, we have a presentation, and is this going to be the Services Director taking over at this point?
Yes, I'll turn it over to Ms. Moore to give a presentation, I think, in conjunction with some folks from the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for having us tonight. My Parks Chair, Ron Brom, who really is, I think, the heart of our committee. So thank you, Ron. But we're here tonight. Josh, I think, yeah, there's a PowerPoint. To recognize a local scout here in town whose Eagle Project he did at our parks. So we have a couple pictures. Took what was just a sea of asphalt and got at 2 different parks, got the basketball court lines painted on there. And you can see it's not an easy process. There's a lot of laying out, measuring, did a great job. In fact, I popped over there at lunchtime and shot a couple baskets with a young man who was over there. So they're being used. I almost thought about entering the free throw and the three-point contest. But we're here to thank Matt tonight, so if you want to come on up. Just want you to know that even though it seems like something small, we really do appreciate it. It made a big difference in our parks, and we have a plaque that we wanted to present to you from the mayor. So,
All right.
I'm standing right here. I want to.
I was taller than him once. Wasn't that long ago. Yeah. All right, so Matt, we're going to ask after the Parks and Rec, the Parks Commission Director gives a few words, we're going to ask Matt to also talk about his project and the things he does with Scouts.
I'm Ron Brom, Park Commissioner, one of the Park Commissioners and Park current Chair. And I'm really proud of Matt, and I'm really proud of this award. This is actually our 3rd award for Park Stewardship, and all 3 have been local Scouts. So very impressed with the Scouts in this area and their fantastic work. In each one of them, this would help attribute to their merit badge.
an Eagle Scout.
An Eagle Scout. And I do want to point out, I'm very proud of our commission. We try to be innovative and create a lot of different programs. And due to Matt's efforts, we had a game on 3-pointer contest and 3-throw contest. And I made posters and we had them up, but all the lines had faded over the years, so we really couldn't have it without. How can you shoot a 3-pointer without a line or a free throw? So I redid the posters, reset up the program. It's now active, and a few weeks ago, I went over and installed them at the parks. Fantastic job. It's just excellent work. The lines were perfect, everything to scale, everything to the modern specs, so excellent job, sir, on that. So now we can have the program, and anyone can enter, doesn't cost anything, and you can use a fake name, just like on a video game or whatever. And you can enter as often as you want, shoot 10 shots, and send in how many you made, and then we list them on Facebook. So again, I want to thank Matt Pilates for his effort in the Scouts, his troop, fantastic job.
All right, Matt. So if you could, Matt, for the record, just introduce yourself, first and last name, so we have it, and talk a little bit about the time you've been with the Scout Troop, what number your Scout Troop is, and if there's any other guests here tonight you'd like to introduce.
Okay. My name is Matthew Politis. I'm part of Troop 329 out of St. Helens School, Riverside, Ohio. I've been in Scouts for about 2.5, 3 years. I've been working towards my Eagle Scout since I joined. The two people that helped me do this project are James Williams and Jacob Comer. I'd also like to thank you, Mr. Skipple, for introducing me to this project and making it possible for me to do this. I would like to thank my dad, too, for being able to drive me everywhere and have the supplies and everything. I think 329 has been a great way for me to learn a lot about Scouts and work hard towards my Eagle, and I think both of these Scouts will be able to do that too.
Matt, how close are you to Eagle now?
I think I've got four
Is the Scoutmaster here by chance?
four merit badges left, and then I just go for my board of review to the council committee. I'd also like to thank you, Josh Davis, who could not attend tonight. He also helped a ton with this project, and I would not have been able to get it done without those three.
All right. It's great that you not only are doing good things in our community, but you're bringing other kids with you, some wayward kids who need a lot of help to be guided along by a positive influence in their life. But it's great. I'm reminded of, was it maybe 2 years ago, Brenda, the Girl Scouts were helping with a bunch of the fire hydrant painting?
Yeah, the first year.
Yeah. So it's great to see that there's young people in our community that are doing things to improve it, and they're leading by example. So this is great. And Matt, you were also a Cub Scout before you were a Boy Scout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been in Scouts more than a couple years. You've been in Scouts, I would say, you've been in Scouts for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So that's excellent. We just want to thank you, thank your helpers. Mr. Skipple, where are you? Hiding in the back. Thank you, Scott Skipple. He's also a Riverside resident, and he does an enormous amount of work for the local scouting troop at 329. So congratulations, Matt. And Chris, you're hiding. Chris, you can take a few pictures. It'd be great to have a few pictures of you and Kim and the Scouts up here with the Riverside logo behind you. So please take a few photos.
Get up closer to the dais,
51,
boys.
52.
Yeah, shoot.
Chair.
Sorry.
Tell them to back up closer to the dais. It would be better.
Yeah, you guys have room to back up if you like.
Back up to the dais. It'll be a better picture.
I don't see it. I don't see it at all.
Not now.
I just have it on there.
Yes.
Good idea. All right. we'll put it to council member comments. And then I believe we also have a presentation, Mr. Manager, on third quarter financials.
We do indeed, and I will turn it over to Ms. Baker for that.
Oh, financials, how exciting. So everybody on council has the actual number, the total numbers. I'm going to walk through in the presentation some overviews and talk a lot about our major funds.
Did it go? Oh, no,
No.
it didn't. I pushed the wrong button. That's the one. Sorry.
Okay, so this is the third quarter update. Josh missed the beginning slide, but that's okay. So the cash availability for the city, we have the $16.8 million in the bank. Of that, approximately $4 million is encumbered. That means we have earmarked that for specific purchases and are obligated to pay that out. So we have approximately $13 million currently. If we were to look at the individual banks listed here, we can see that of that 13 million, we have approximately $10 million in Star, Ohio, and 2.7 million in Fifth Third. Those are our investment accounts. For the bank reconciliation, this is just showing that we are finally reconciled. Thanks to you guys, I was able to record a miscellaneous revenue and clear the bank up. So you can see that our bank balance adjusted amount is currently equal to our book balance, which is that 16.8 million we talked about on the last slide. The only things that we kind of have outstanding for this particular part of this process is in that total adjustments column. So that $542, that's all I'm chasing from prior years, and that's just because there's a lot of research to do with those dollars, but that's pretty immaterial as far as we're concerned today. All right, this is showing us our cash by our major funds. So you can see in the general fund, we have $9.1 million. Of that, we have a small amount encumbered, which leaves us an available cash balance in our general fund of $7.9 million. I will say that this is slightly misleading only because part of that encumbrance does include a grant that we have for Safe Streets for All. That's $700,000 that we have encumbered that we do not have revenue for yet. It is a reimbursable grant. So it is not in cash, but it is encumbered. So actually that number would be slightly higher by the $700,000. And then in our police fund, we have approximately $984,000 available. I will say that the police and fire fund, a large portion of their expenses are actually personnel, and we do not encumber personnel expense. So again, just little things to think about when we start talking about how much cash we have available as a city. On our year-to-date revenues by source, we can see that our income tax is on target at this point in the year. So this is as of 9/30, so the end of third quarter. We should have approximately 75% collected, and we would hope that we have approximately 75 expended as well, but we'll talk about that in the next slide. But here you can see our income tax is slightly above where we would anticipate it being currently. Now this is saying we're almost 80% collected, and so that's part of what Josh was talking about last week on why we felt comfortable increasing that budget for next year to be the 10 million that we have been collecting and what we anticipate collecting this year. Property tax and other local tax, we can see that that says it's 90% collected. I will say our property tax is collected twice a year, and we have both of those in-house. So property tax itself is 100% collected, but we do have other local taxes that kind of bring that collection rate down a little bit because it does come in monthly. We are on target for that particular line as well. And then, as you can see on other, we're well above target. That actually has to do with some grants that our teams have applied for this year. all great things and things that we needed and help supplement what we had at the beginning of the year. I need to update our estimated resources so that it includes those grants. But overall, you can see that our revenues are above target at this point in the year. For our expenses, I'm talking about the major funds again, and you can see that the personnel expense in at least police and fire are well above the other types of expenses in those funds. That's what I was talking about on the cash page. Okay. So when we're talking about the expense, though, we are below the 75%. Part of that has to do with we didn't really know what to anticipate for insurance increases, for one. We have had a couple vacancies this year throughout the year, so we aren't at the 75%, which is good, and we hope that we can continue kind of staying on target with staying under what we planned for expenses. But I do believe we're going to be talking to you about some additional supplementals so that we can leverage some of this in order to get into a better capital plan for our outgoing years. The city manager will talk about that. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, mostly because our city manager is also going to talk about this, is our Right Point Fund. So Right Point is a major expense for the city. You can see that the revenue, while we do have some revenue, a lot of that actually comes from our bonds. So the debt that we incur comes in as revenue to cover these buildings. So really the only thing that we're collecting are what's listed as fees. Those are our leases. And those lease amounts aren't really, you can see it's 72%. We're not at the 75% for the end of September. We are not on target for those leases to collect what we thought we would for the year. And then when we're talking about transfers, Right Point is the only transfer that I've done this year. I have not transferred any monies into any other funds. You guys have allowed me to appropriate monies to supplement funds, but Right Point is the only one that's required a supplement thus far this year. On the expense side, a lot of that has to do with debt. The operating expense, you can see, it's a large expense for the two buildings, but we are still on target to meet what we anticipated spending for this year on those. And then on the cash, this cash and the packets that I gave you that show the actual detail for all funds, you'll see that it's the only fund that has a year-to-date balance that's negative. That does not mean that we cannot cover that based on the revenues coming in. It just means that I have not collected the cash to cover it. So the encumbrance that is committed, that is for all expenses through the end of December, but I do not have the cash through the end of December. I do expect to get that $80,000 in lease payments, and we should probably end around $20,000 to the positive in that fund. So I just wanted to point that out.
So I know this is categorized, this is summarized by category here.
Yes.
One thing I think would be kind of at least helpful for me and paint a little bit of a more clear picture. I know there's plans with this building, but in the chances that we are here for a little bit longer, this might be helpful to look at is the revenue from the bond, which is in debt, the $4.5 million there, is somewhat offset by the expense from the debt expense that we see there on the expense side. But there's a difference there, and the difference there would likely be interest that we're
Yes.
paying out.
Yes.
So I think it would be helpful to see kind of an overall, we can look at how much we're not making or how much we're losing, because we can take the fees that we're seeing here, the miscellaneous expense from the revenue, offset that by operating, and then the interest expense. Because I think the capital debt kind of it's a wash in a sense, because it's kind of, you're like, I mean, when you pay a house, the principal payment is kind of going into a piggy bank where you're paying the bank an expense, which is interest. So just to kind of be able to see that, so we can get like a net picture of, okay, this year, we've effectively lost in fees X amount of dollars, and we're hopefully in the future gained X amount of dollars and fees brought in. So just a tidbit that might be helpful to paint a clear picture here on what really the cost of these buildings are. Does that
No,
make sense?
I think that's helpful. Basically what I'm hearing you say is it might be more insightful to look at this through a different lens where the principal is not included on either side of the equation for the band, because what that would give you is, here's what we're paying in interest for the debt plus everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that would maybe take some of the inflated size of the numbers out of the comparison.
Yeah, I mean, this is like factual to what our audited financial statements would show. Like, that's what I believe Kim is showing us here. It's
Well,
just being,
we paid interest and we had to pay the loan down ever so slightly.
right, but just being able to see like the capital we could like make a loan off of, or like take that back, like that is like our money in a sense tied in the building, but like the expense, we're not gonna get that back. We can't get the expense or the interest back. So just being able to break that out from the capital expense or the debt expense would paint a more clear picture, I think.
No, I think that's good feedback, and what we can do is try to weave that into the next version of the budget book that we create. So we do have some narrative in there that we can start to tackle and show some other graphs. So what we will do is kind of take this back, and when we start building that budget book and come back to you in mid-November for a budget workshop, we will have something prepped that hopefully gets at that kind of a comparison, so.
Yeah, this is fantastic. There's just one little bit of suggestion.
I hear you.
Any other questions for Ms. Baker? All right, and we'll move back to, well, is that the conclusion of the third quarter financials, Mr. Manager?
Yes.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to the agenda, item number 9. We've all had a chance to look over the meeting minutes from our October 3rd meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes as published?
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Joseph and a second from the Deputy Manager. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the October 3rd meeting as published signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. If there's any citizens joining us this evening that would like to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, you can turn in a slip located in the back of the room to the Madam Clerk up front. We'll be hearing any comments on agenda items first and then non-agenda items a little bit later in the meeting. It looks as if, Madam Clerk, that we've received a request to speak, but it's on a non-agenda item. Is that the only
Correct.
request we received?
That's it.
Then we move on to unfinished business, of which we have an ordinance. Mr. Manager, this is Chapter 711 in our codified ordinances.
Correct. This is the second reading of the do not knock ordinance.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Do we have a motion for Mr. Denning and a second for Mr. Brown? Riverside City Council allows the ordinance to be read by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 240855, an ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 711 of the codified ordinances of the city of Riverside, Ohio.
All right, I will now open the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-855 at 6:23 PM. If you wish to speak on this ordinance, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one come forward and hearing no one, I will close the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-855 at 6:24 PM. Is there any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. We'll now move on to new business, of which we have 2 ordinances and 3 resolutions. The first ordinance, Mr. Manager, this is for a portion, or this is a parcel near the Glendine property that we talked about the last work session.
Correct. This ordinance would authorize the sale of that parcel in the amount of $18,500.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from the Deputy Mayor, and we have a second from Mr. Joseph. Riverside City Council allows for the reading of an ordinance to be done by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 240856, an ordinance declaring city property located on or about Glendine Avenue, parcel ID number I-39001100006, to no longer be needed for municipal purposes and to be surplus, and authorizing the city manager to execute documents necessary to sell said property and declaring an emergency.
Is there any further discussion from members of council?
This is dependent on a CRA approval, right?
No, the property, this is actually, it's discussed in the MOU, which is a resolution that will come forward toward the end of this agenda. But this is the sort of the first step in allowing the developer to start the project. The CRA application is something that will be negotiated separately.
And there was, my understanding of the work session, it was a clawback clause.
A reversionary
Yeah,
clause?
that's in the MOU,
Okay.
correct, yep.
Yeah, so the property would revert back to us under certain circumstances. And this is the first reading, so there will be a second reading, public hearing, and possible approval. I would believe the November 2nd meeting.
November 7th.
Seventh.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. Our second ordinance, ordinance 24-0-857. This is some appropriations and some supplementals. Mr. Manager?
Yes, this is the supplemental ordinance for the Wright Point projects that we discussed last week. So this ordinance appropriates the $3.5 million that we would need to get started on the core projects for each of the buildings. The roof project would be the one that we would, the restroom project would be the one that we would tackle in next year's budget.
And this is the first reading.
It's first reading, and yes, if we need to pivot, we can certainly pivot at the second reading at the November 7th city council meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Joseph. The Riverside City Council allows for an ordinance to be read by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, please read this ordinance by title only.
Ordinance number 240857, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Riverside, state of Ohio, for the period January 1 through December 31, 2024.
Any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Fry.
Yes.
Ms. Lomach.
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. All right, we have three resolutions, I should say. First resolution, Mr. Manager, this is from a recommendation from the Budget Commission.
It's the annual housekeeping resolution we passed that approves the county's rates,
Okay.
So moved.
tax levy rates, excuse me.
So
Second.
moved.
We have a motion from Ms. Lomach and a second from Mr. Joseph. All those in favor of Resolution 24-R-2983 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The next resolution, Mr. Manager, this is our investment policy.
Correct. The city council passed an ordinance earlier this year that took investment policy language out of our codified ordinances. This is the investment policy that replaces that in substantial form. It's been reviewed by our legal counsel as well as our outside financial advisors. And it is designed to safeguard our cash and capital while at the same time seeking appropriate returns.
So moved.
Appropriate returns.
Second.
We have a motion for Mr. Joseph and a second for Mr. Denning. All those in favor of Resolution 24-R-2984 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And the final resolution, Mr. Manager.
This is the MOU for the Glendine project that describes the property parcel sale, as well as an ongoing commitment to continue to work in good faith with the developer on potential incentives, including a CRA.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from the Deputy Mayor and a second from Mr. Joseph. All those in favor of Resolution 24-R-2985 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We will now hear comments from the public, I should say, on non-agenda items. We do have someone with us this evening who wishes to speak. And if Mr. John Bowman would please come to the microphone. And if you could, Mr. Bowman, thank you for joining us this evening. If you could state your name and address for the record at the podium. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and we're certainly grateful for your time this evening.
I apologize up front, but my hearing is not very good, so I'll do the best I can with it. What I'm here tonight to talk about, my name is John Bowman. I live at 2608 Harshman Road. We've lived there since 2005. Recently had an issue where my vehicles, primarily my trucks and my trailers, for one in particular, a bucket truck that I have, was cited for being non-conformant with the city code, codified ordinances, I believe it's called. I went ahead and moved that truck. I did have it in the yard. I put it back in my driveway. That truck has been in that driveway and on my property for over 10 years. I don't know why it suddenly became a problem. The code officials did tell me that they had a anonymous complaint, which I think is kind of strange. In addition to that, my property and where that particular truck and vehicles are located are over 300 feet off the road, from the front of the road behind my house. The speed limit on Harshman is 45 mile an hour. The width of my lot's 126 feet. You couldn't possibly see anything I've got back there unless you were actually just looking for something. So my question is, what I'm really here about is I get we need ordinances. I want my city clean just like anybody else does. I like living here. Okay, there's a lot of pluses to it. But I guess the question I have, and I do want to question that the description is, what are we trying to really achieve with this ordinance about parking any vehicle on our property, as long as it's in my designated driveway? I got the original complaint because I had it parked in the grass. I took it out of the grass. Whether I agree with it or not, doesn't matter. I took it out of the grass. I asked for an extension to address different issues with it, and I came back with another complaint. Okay. When I did ask for an extension, the staff gave me a list of a description or definition of a commercial vehicle. And in that definition, the number, talks about a truck or vehicle being modified. The particular vehicle in question was a bucket truck. I don't use it as a truck. I use it strictly for the lift. But I did move it. In fact, it's put inside of a building. So after I thought that was clear and came back, then they cited one of my enclosed trailers, said that was a commercial vehicle. The code clearly says commercial vehicle, and there's 4 different descriptions, but the number one thing is commercial vehicle's common industrial cargo weight classification exceeds that of 1 ton. That could be any company truck, pickup truck, box truck in this city. Okay. So I said, well, that's kind of unusual. First of all, anything that I have is in my personal name for personal use. I do not use it for a business. It's not labeled. It has no notification, no nameplate on it. It's not licensed as commercial, but it's being cited as commercial. I don't understand that. I also don't understand, and the question I ask is, why trucks with company logos and names on them and commercial tags in this city are not cited? Okay, so when I asked that question, folks asked me to point those out or mark. I'm not going to do that. First of all, if people are using this equipment for business and so on, we all got to make a living. I don't have a problem with it. So what I would really like to do is clarify your definition of what we are and are not allowed to have.
So, Mr. Bowman, it sounds like what you would like is clarification
I definitely want clarification.
On what vehicles are allowed to be parked in residential
Yes, sir.
neighborhoods and residential lots.
Yes, sir.
And I believe that the city manager, the city law director, and the community development director would be happy to look into those questions and get some clarity. Is that without speaking directly for
Yes,
you?
we're happy to do
Let me
that.
speak directly for you.
Yes, no, absolutely. We'll take your information, and we're happy to set up a meeting just to kind of get to the bottom of the specific issues of this case.
I would also like to point out the size of the lots. Most of the lots in this town are what, quarter acre, half acre at best,
Or smaller.
or smaller. My property is 3 acres. It's 126 feet wide and almost 11 or 1,300 feet long. I had the dimensions here somewhere. So obviously, the other issue is it takes a lot more to maintain a 3 acre lot than it does a quarter acre lot or a half acre lot. So I have this equipment for that purpose, for personal use. I do not, and we'll talk further, I don't understand why it's a problem, especially because the majority that have sat there or been involved, moved in and out for 10 years or more. I don't understand why it's suddenly become an issue.
Well, Mr. Bowman, I hope you'll be happy to know that we are in the middle of a rewrite and reexamination of our city code. And I'm very hopeful, as all my fellow council members are, that looking at specific issues like the ones you're bringing up, size of lot and proportion to uses,
Yes.
will be addressed. And I also know that, as the city manager said, we'd be happy to follow up with you. And should you not get the follow-up that you're desiring from the city manager and the law director and community development director, then we'd invite you to come back and talk to us again.
No problem at all, but what I would really like to do, because I've already asked for an extension, and that's going to be up next week, the 21st, I asked for the extension to have time to address the council, address whatever method, till we can either at least put this on hold until we find a solution.
Well, I'm sure the city manager would be happy to speak to you either after the meeting or
Okay.
tomorrow
Yes.
morning.
Yeah. I mean, our goal in every code enforcement case is compliance. So our goal in every code enforcement case is compliance, just
Yes.
trying to get to the compliance with the code.
get
So we're
that.
happy to work with people, and we'll work on getting a meeting set up.
Okay, again, like I say, if there was a problem, even following your rules, if following your definition, if there was a problem, I could go along with it. This is not following your definition. Okay. Let's see, the only other thing.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman.
Thank you, dear.
Come back anytime. All right, we will move on to the always informative but always brief city manager report.
Always put me on the spot with the briefness.
Brevity.
No, I know,
Brevity.
right? Just a couple quick notes. I did want to make, for those in the community who may not be aware, we did have a police officer who was rear-ended on Route 4 earlier today while running traffic. That was an accident that resulted in some minor injuries. Everybody's okay, going to be okay. But I do just want to remind folks that we do have workers in the right-of-way, and not just the city. You'll see utility, you'll see the county, AES, the state, ODOT. And, it's important to take your time and keep your eyes about you and have your eyes on the road and what's ahead of you. Because if people don't pay attention, then accidents do happen, incidents do happen, and it puts folks at risk. I know there was also an incident, not in our jurisdiction, but in Dayton, I think it was earlier this year, where a police officer and several recruits were in a very major collision on Route 4 as well. So just a friendly reminder, if you're on the road, please pay attention and travel at the posted speed limit.
And stay off your phone.
Yeah, and yeah, don't watch your phone screen. It can wait.
You can be penalized for that, too.
This is correct. So a couple other quick updates. We have conducted at this point 2 community meetings regarding ballot issues, and I also attended a Riverside Seniors meeting. I believe that was this week, correct? Man, time is warping for me. So we've done quite a lot of community outreach on that front in person. Residents by this point should have received a newsletter in their physical mailboxes. If you don't have one, please reach out to City Hall. We will be sure that you get one. All of this information that we've circulated is also available online. You can go to riversideoh.gov. There's a nice banner that Ms. Llewellyn has put right at the top of the webpage, so anybody can get all the information that we have about ballot issues online. I'd also like to give a shout out to, is it Parker?
Parker Conley.
Parker
Conley.
at Mad River, who has helped us produce a series of video shorts that are kind of companion pieces to the ballot issues. Those are being posted on Facebook. They are also out on our YouTube channel. You can check those out. And many thanks to Officer Toscani for his assistance with those as well. And the final thing I'll leave you with is that we will continue to work on the budget per our conversation last week and come back to council with an update in mid-November after elections, once some of the dust has settled and we're able to figure out where we're headed next year. And that's all I have.
All right. We will move to council member comments, and I will start with Ms. Lomach.
Just a lot of events going on around Halloween. Sunday night from 6 to 8 in the Airway Shopping Center. The 937
Barbershop.
Barbershop, I can never remember the numbers, but a new event that they put together. Of course, the haunted house is always a big deal, but I'll let Mike talk about that.
Okay, geez, jump scare, speaking of haunted houses. Is that all for Ms. Lomatch?
That's it, yeah.
All right, Mr. Brown.
No comments this time.
All right, Mr. Joseph?
I think I'm going to keep saying this until the election, but we have 19 days until Election Day. Councilmember Fry pointed to it last week very eloquently that you are able to go early vote downtown at the Board of Elections. It is a super easy process. I've done it several times. But it's important. Your news channels, news feeds, commercials are inundated with a lot of rhetoric.
Stuff.
But it's more than that. It's not just who's the president. It's not just who's going to be in the Senate. It's also supporting your parks, supporting your libraries, supporting your local schools, potentially supporting your police. That is on the ballot. That is factual. Also, if you agree with gerrymandering or not, that's also on the ballot. So regardless of how you feel, it is extremely important that you exercise your right as an American citizen to go vote in November, or go vote early, or go request an absentee ballot. It is extremely easy to go vote. All I ask, I know a lot of us here as your elected officials will ask you, is please just go vote in this election. Thank you, that's all I have.
All right. I would certainly echo the sentiments of many of my fellow council members, all my fellow council members, that the opportunity to inform yourself prior to the election is paramount, and whatever decision you make, please make an informed one. And I'd also like to thank the Dayton Metro Library. I've been holding a few open house type forums to ask people, for people to ask me questions about the city or things happening in the city. And the Burkhart Library has been kind enough to let me reserve space there. I held one this past week. I'm going to hold another one Monday the 21st and then Monday the 28th. You just pop in. I stay there for about 90 minutes, and I had some residents that joined me this past Tuesday, and we had a great conversation about all kinds of stuff happening in our city. And it's nice to hear directly from people. I know that social media is very easy for us to connect, but I don't always know that those connections are authentic. And to sit down with folks and talk over things or conceptions that they might have had about why things are the way they are, or how things got to be the way they are today, good or bad, and being able to give some perspective and in many cases give some definitives on maybe where the city's budget is, or maybe where the city's budget's going, as opposed to, well, I heard from someone that ... and the ever dreadful passive voice creeps in, which I can't stand. But I really appreciate the Burkhart Library and the Dayton Metro Library for allowing community space to be used well in Montgomery County. And it was very easy for me to reserve the space, use the space, and had a great time. So thank you to the Burkhart staff. On to Mr. Maxfield.
I have no comments tonight.
Councilmember Fry.
I just want to give my appreciation to the city manager and the council clerk and Officer Toscani for all of the work that everyone has contributed toward the informative videos. I've watched the two that have been posted so far. I've shared the information that's been on the website, and just having all of that information just readily available for voters. I know when I went to vote with my family last week, they really were trying to be engaged, and they were so appreciative of all of the information that I was able to share with them. So thank you for putting all of that stuff together. It really is important. That's it.
And Councilmember Denning.
Well, I would say that it is not just your right to vote, it is your responsibility to vote. And everyone that is able to vote is over the age of 18, that should be registered by now, should go out and vote. I'm not saying vote one way or the other. I'm just asking you to take on the responsibility that has been given to us as citizens of the United States and vote. regardless of which way you go. Also, this Saturday from noon to 4 is the Lights On Matinee at the Haunted House. So if you're younger and/or older and are afraid of the dark or whatever, there will be no monsters inside. You can trick or treat and go through the haunted house and kind of get a tour and decide whether you want to go when it's dark out and the monsters are inside. So that's a great fundraiser for the J.C.'s, and it's a great time for all. So I would also like to say that we don't have any meetings before then. On November 1st will be our first Lights Out night. So you will go through the haunted house with no lights on and the trail with no lights, which means no black lights, no strobe lights, but the monsters will be inside. So use your senses, and each group will get one red glow stick that the monsters may or may not take away from you. So it'll be a lot of fun. It's our first time trying this, and hopefully it'll be a positive thing for everybody.
Mike, how many years have the J.C.'s had?
This is our 39th season.
39th.
Yes, we're the longest running haunted house in the Miami Valley. And we are 100% volunteer, and all the money that we make from the haunted house goes back into the community for all the community projects that we run throughout the year. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And now that we've gone through that, I will declare the meeting adjourned at 6:46 p.m. That's okay, right, Jim? I can just adjourn? Adjourn! How about that?